is Svajana Mohana Shakti. So Swamohana means Krishna's Yogamaya will cover himself only. He will forget. By his desire, he wanted to experience his connection with his gopas, gopis in a certain way, and Yogamaya will overwhelm him with those feelings, whatever is required to facilitate that exchange, and Krishna himself will forget. He himself will get bewildered. And Svajana Mohana. Sometimes gopis get bewildered. So ultimately it is Krishna's desire. But within the purview of the pastime, sometimes it is not seen apparently as a deliberate desire or choice made by the devotees or the Lord. It is being orchestrated by the Lord's spiritual energy or Yogamaya in a way so that some relish comes out naturally. Otherwise, if Krishna, for example, let me give a simpler example of Vatsalya Prema. When Krishna was neglected by Mother Yashoda, apparently, she was feeding milk and then she kept Krishna aside to save that milk which is boiling over. Then Krishna became frustrated and he started crying. And Acharyas say that the tears of Krishna are genuine tears. He is really crying. Hare Krishna. So Krishna was genuinely crying. They are not false tears or fake tears. They are real tears. Why? Because Mother Yashoda's love for Krishna is so intense that to sufficiently reciprocate with Mother Yashoda's motherly love, Krishna has to completely get absorbed in the identity of being a son of Mother Yashoda. He cannot have the identity of Upadrishta, Anumanta, Paramatma, Bharta, Bhokta, Maheshwara. He cannot have this kind of identities. I am the creator, I am the maintainer, I am the destroyer, I am the proprietor. Krishna keeps his identity kit aside. It's like Maharaj was guiding us that we have to keep our identity kit aside and identify ourselves only as a servant of Krishna to effectively chant the holy names of the Lord. Similarly, in Vrindavan, Krishna keeps his identity kit aside. I am not the creator of the cosmos. I am not the source of avatars. I am not Krishnastu Bhagavan Swami. What is my identity? I am just the son of Mother Yashoda. No other identity. So when Krishna is absorbed in this identity of being a son of Mother Yashoda, and Yashoda neglects him, Krishna cries. Genuine tears, not false tears. Now don't see Krishna as God here. See Krishna as a small child, 2-3-year-old boy who is neglected by mother apparently. And is very disappointed and angry. And Acharyas also give this point. A person's integrity has to be tested by what he or she does when nobody is around. So nobody was around at that time. Rohini Mata was not there, Nanda Maharaj was not there, Balram was not there, Yashoda Mata was not there. Krishna was alone in that room and he's crying, means they are genuine tears. Right? So this is under the influence of Yogamaya. Krishna forgets that he is God and is observed in the mode of being a son of Mother Yashoda. And then he is crying genuine tears. So Krishna himself, ultimately it is his choice, it is his will to forget. But once he desires like that, he will forget that he has desired it, and Yogamaya takes over, and Yogamaya does the needful so that Krishna continues and participates in the pastime. Does it make sense, Mathura?
Yes, thank you very much. You also answered one question that I had from before. So I have another small question which is somewhat connected, if you allow.
Yes, Mathura.
Yes, if you could say a few words then of those devotees who are in the mood of union in Vrindavan, and in what ways are they relishing this mood?
Means when Krishna was there in Vrindavan or when
No, when he
Akrura
left,
came?
because you said there are two Vrindavans after he left. because in a way he never leaves Vrindavan. Then you said there are those who are in union because it's their mood.
Akrura saw, Uddhava, when he came to Vrindavan, he saw one facet of Vrindavan where it is very blissful and happy. So Vishnu Chakravarti Thakur says that this is some set of Rajavasis or one facet of Vrindavan who are experiencing the union of Vrindavan and presence of Krishna, union of Krishna and presence of Krishna. But later Uddhava saw another facet of Vrindavan where the devotees are in separation from Krishna. So this is manifest, and that union part is not fully manifest, at least within that purports. That's all I could get. But there may be more detail to it, Maharaj, if you wish.
Thank you very much.
It's about surrendering to Krishna and the fear as a conditioned soul of surrender. So we see from the Shastras and the examples, for instance, Gajendra, which you quoted, he was able to surrender after 1,000 years of suffering and experiencing or seeing that nobody else can help him. Or we hear also that Draupadi, she eventually surrendered when there was nobody else who could help her. But how do we surrender when we feel in our heart that Krishna would like us to go like a step deeper in our spiritual life? So we are not suffering. He's inviting us to surrender, but somehow or other, we are a little bit waiting and not able to do that step out of some fear.
Some devotees in the past have completely surrendered to Krishna when they experienced great difficulties. Now we are not that desperate. How does that mood of surrender manifest in our lives? The mood of surrender manifests in our lives by following the teachings of our acharyas. Acharyas say there are 6 aspects of surrender. Anukulyasya sankalpam pratikulyasya varjanam. So in our sadhaka life, our expression of surrender or our imbibing of that mood of surrender is through adopting whatever is favorable for bhakti and avoiding whatever is unfavorable for bhakti. That is our surrender. We surrender to the rule. We surrender to the policies and protocols and prescriptions and prohibitions or do's and don'ts as given to us by the acharyas, regimen given to us by the acharyas. Why? Why is this rule consciousness? I need to be spontaneous. Because we are not on that level. We are Vaidhi sadhana bhaktas, right? So vidhis, following the vidhis is our surrender. So for a sadhaka, for a Vaidhi sadhaka, surrendering to the vidhi is the surrender. That is the Saranagati. And when somebody transcends that level of Vaidhi sadhana, then the spontaneity will manifest. Spontaneous surrender will manifest. Right? But in a sadhaka life, yeah, definitely there is some difficulty in our lives. Somebody has some health crisis or financial crisis, or they lose their beloved one suddenly. So that intense phase of pain may aid their surrender, may help them surrender in a more desperate manner, in the mood of Draupadi, in the mood of a child who is crying for mother, or in the mood of Gajendra who is suffering because of the crocodile. So this can manifest situationally, but it is not one of the 6 aspects of surrender. That's a circumstance somehow happened in someone's life, right? That aids surrender. But it's not a mandatory item that everybody should face a calamity, then only surrender, Saranagati will manifest in their lives. It doesn't. It may not happen. Somebody directly surrenders although there is happiness everywhere. You see, in the Chaitanya Charitamrita, Adilila, Prabhupada writes, Jagannath Mishra and Sachi Mata had, I think, 8 daughters before Vishwambhar appeared, before Vishwarup appeared. They lost. They're in pain. They took shelter of Lord Govinda. But finally, after losing so many daughters, they got one surviving child, Vishwarup. Again they surrender. Again they worship Lord Govinda. So Prabhupada writes a simple point. Whether it is happiness or distress, devotee always takes shelter of Krishna. Right? They're very exalted devotees. Sometimes distress may help us be more desperate in taking shelter of Krishna. That's fine. That's a circumstance. But for a sadhaka, following the 6 steps of surrender is what is recommended by acharyas. Adopting whatever is favorable, avoiding whatever is unfavorable, and karpanya, atma nikshepa means feeling oneself totally incapable of doing anything, and feeling very humble at heart. Then Goptrutva Varanam means Krishna is the only protector, having complete faith in Krishna's protection. So that mood, that is the surrender that is recommended for by our acharyas. Does it make sense, Mataji? Maharaj, you want to add anything? You want to add anything, Maharaj?
Thank you so much, Prabhu, for these classes. I have 2 questions. They're very different, if you don't mind. The first one is, when we are meditating on the pastimes and all the different leelas, is there space for us to include ourselves in these leelas, like seeing ourselves as the gopis or being in the temple with Prahlad or in his struggles? Like, are we allowed to put ourselves in that? Or is that a distraction? Like, because now we're like fantasizing, so is that then a distraction from us actually meditating on the pastimes?
For a Vaidhi sadhaka bhakta,
Yes.
who is still struggling to control one's senses,
Yes.
who is still battling with the anarthas of lust, envy, pride, greed,
Yes.
it's better not to imagine oneself as Gopi or Gopa or Prahlad, etc. Better try to be attentive as much as humanly possible in our japa and do whatever services assigned to us by the spiritual master and spiritual authorities, and study Srimad Bhagavatam. And when we cross this big stage of anartha nivritti, then some kind of steadiness will manifest in our sadhana. As of now, our sadhana may be very unsteady. Struggling sadhaka's sadhana is little unsteady. What is this unsteadiness? Because of anarthas. But to cross that phase of unsteady practice of devotional service and come to steady practice, or in Sanskrit, using technical words, to cross this phase of anishtita bhakti and come to the nishtita bhakti platform, we need to regularly hear Srimad Bhagavatam. Nashtaprayeshva bhadreshu nityam bhagavata sevaya bhagavatyuttama shloke bhaktir bhavati naishtiki. The first priority of a struggling sadhaka is to acquire some steadiness in one's sadhana. Bhaktir bhavati naishtika. Is by bhakti naishtiki? Naishtiki means nishtha. Is there a nishtha, steadiness in the sadhana? Steadiness is not there means anarthas are still there. So anarthas are still there, steadiness is not there. There is a possibility of putting ourselves in the role of gopis or gopas. If you are making a drama, then you can put yourself in that role. It's a drama for the pleasure of all Vaishnavas, then we can definitely play the role of Yashoda Mata or some Gopa for that 5 minutes, 10 minutes, 1 hour drama. And thus develop some appreciation for them. But artificially, immaturely, and prematurely imagining ourselves in that position could create some unnecessary utpata. Utpata eva kalpate. Aikantiki harer bhaktir utpata eva kalpate. Shruti smriti puranadi pancharatra vidhingana. So we need to follow the regimen given by the scriptures as sadhakas. When somebody crosses that level of anartha nivritti and then comes to study practice and develops bhava, then they're on their own. They can make some choices. I'm like this, I'm like that. Otherwise, if a struggling sadhaka, still having some anarthas, imitates the behavior of gopis, Prabhupada calls them sahajiyas. Yes, Upadeshamrit, last few shlokas present very high levels of, advanced levels of bhakti, where devotee meditates on the pastimes. But that's a raganuga sadhana. But Vaidhi sadhakas cannot do that, raganuga sadhakas can do that. Okay, does it make
Yes,
answer?
yes, it does. It does. So, going into the second question, it's when we were going through these songs of the gopis, there were moments where, like, I guess I was picking up, especially in verse 9, where there's two meanings, right? And then one meaning, it's like positive, negative, but one had like a level of sarcasm within it. And then we see in Kali Yuga, like sarcasm is completely exaggerated upon, and people use it in very harmful and malicious ways. How does one who's still growing in bhakti then read these texts without then putting that lens on top of this and can relate to the gopis, but then I don't feel that like the material pains of someone speaking sarcasm in a negative way to me?
First, we need to read the first 9 cantos of Bhagavatam systematically. Then we read Bhagavatam 10th canto up to 28th chapter systematically. And carefully see how Krishna is killing demons like Putana, Aghasur, Bakasur, Vatsasur, Vyomasur, Kaliya, subduing Kaliya, Brahmi Munila. So in all these, many of these demons represent various anarthas. And Krishna is destroying them, means Krishna is destroying the anarthas that are represented by those demons. Then comes Rasa Panchadhyaya. So, without having this background of reading the first 9 cantos and understanding Krishna's greatness, and without having sufficient understanding of Krishna's initial childhood leelas, there's some Aishwarya in the first 5 chapters of 10th canto. Then slowly demon killing pastimes will come. There is also display of little Aishwarya there, although it's happening in the Madhurya Dham. Then pure Madhurya comes little later, Rasa Panchadhyaya, from 29th chapter. So, Prabhupada says the qualification to read Bhagavatam is systematically read from first chapter to last chapter, chapter by chapter, canto by canto, shloka by shloka, purport by purport. Then, when we see little sarcasm or criticism made by the gopis, they are criticizing Krishna, you will not see it as material sarcasm. When Yashodamata is chastising Krishna, we will not see that as, Krishna is an ordinary child. We will not have that impression at all. Because we understand this little child who is being chastised by or criticized by the gopis of Vrindavan is the supreme creator, maintainer, destroyer. We studied all the second canto chats, very exhaustive process of creation. We went through the 5th canto Bhagavatam cosmology. We saw Kapila's teachings, karma path, jnana path, yoga path. And we also slightly saw karma mishra jnana, jnana mishra karma. My God, so much complication. And we also saw examples of so many devotees like Vritrasur, Chitraketu Maharaj, Indra's struggles. We saw examples of so many mixed bhaktas and pure bhaktas. We saw Dhruva Maharaj's example. Those who have serious material ambition slowly transited into pure devotional service. So many lessons up to 9th canto Bhagavatam. And so many descriptions of Krishna's majesty, grandeur and opulence and powers, vibhutis. Then we come to the sweet Leela of Vrindavan. We will not misunderstand it. If you directly jump there, then there is a possibility of misunderstanding. So then we think that this sarcasm or this criticism is material. I can also criticize Krishna like that. Gopis are saying, I'm following the footsteps of gopis. So, for us not to come to that conclusion, we need to study the 9 cantos thoroughly. Not like a scholar or an academician, but like a devotee, looking for inspiration, like an essence seeker. Does it make sense, Mathura?
Yes, and that leads me to think then actively applying what then I'm learning from like each story, what anarthas are there, and then how they show up in myself, rectifying that, and then moving on systematically would be helpful. If
Huh?
or clearing that out within myself. So if I see like I'm not being humble, and I'm learning that from one story, I'm learning that from Dhruva, right? How to be humble. And I see that it's something I struggle with. I should then be sitting with that story for a lot longer until I can move through that within myself, correct?
Yeah, well, different pastimes describe different kinds of lessons, present different kinds of lessons. When we are particularly struggling with some anartha, some unwanted personality trait within us, and if some pastimes or some lessons in that pastime help us overcome that, then we can focus on that. Somebody struggling with lust, then they can go through 8th canto 12th chapter, 9th canto 14th chapter, 11th canto 26th chapter. Means these are pastimes of Shiva running behind Mohini Murti. Then Pururava, Urvasi, Yayati and Devayani. So there are so many pastimes in connection to that. Somebody is very proud. Okay, they can go through 6th canto. Indra struggles because of his pride. Somebody is very angry. They can read second chapter of 4th canto up to 7th chapter. Daksha example is there. Yeah, definitely that will help us.
Okay, thank you.
I don't know if I got the question properly, but
You did.
I said something. Okay, thank you. Yes, bro. You only have 2 minutes. Somebody wants to ask there? You wanted? You can ask, Mataji. Mic was already in her hands. We are taking
Thank you so much for the wonderful Krishna Katha. You were mentioning that when Krishna was born in Mathura, Vasudeva took him to the Gokul, and already when Krishna was born there, but he could not see him because he did not have that in him to see that form. So what should we do to see that form of Krishna born in Vrindavan? That, yeah.
Prabhupada has manifested that form as Radha Shyam Sundar in Krishna Balaram temple. And many other Goswamis have manifested that form in many other temples. So, the 4th canto of Srimad Bhagavatam says, Prabhupada also writes there, that for a sadhaka or a conditioned soul, someone who is embodied in this human form, seeing the spiritual form of Krishna is not possible. Therefore, Krishna manifests in the form of a deity. And the deity is not different from his original spiritual form when it is installed by great devotees according to the prana pratishtha process prescribed in the scriptures. Right? So that is like one level of answer. But another level, how can we see that Vrindavan Krishna, that Vasudeva also could not see? The ultimate answer for that is follow the footsteps of Vrajavasis. To attain that Vrajabhava and to see Vrajendra Nandan Krishna, we need to follow the footsteps of the Vrajavasis as taught to us by our acharyas. So Aradhyo Bhagavan Vrajeshitanya. Our Aradhya Bhagavan is Vrajeshitanya only. Shyam Sundar Krishna only. So that Shyam Sundar is in the form of a deity. So we worship that deity, and that's our connection initially. And when we are mature enough or evolved enough in our spiritual life, Krishna will give an opportunity to give his Sakshat Darshan also. That is in his hands, but we'll focus on our regimen of sadhana given by the acharyas. Does it answer your question, Mary?
Yeah, because I always think that Krishna is the same whether he is in the Dwaraka or in Vrindavan. He is Shyama Sundar, its color is not going to change, and his Tribanga is not going to change. Maybe he's not playing the flute, but flute is with him. So, what is the...
Same in the sense, yeah, potentially same, but emotionally not same. So potency is there, but emotion is different, mood is different. In Vrindavan, he's very playful. In Vrindavan, Krishna forgets that he's God. He's not aware of his godhood. He's only thinking that I'm a son of Mother Yashoda, lover of Radharani and these gopis, friend of all these sakhas. But in Mathura and Dwarka and Vaikuntha, he remembers his God. Not he remembers, he is in the mood of God. Right? So mood is different, potency is there.
Thank you.
I think it's already 7. I think we should stop here. We'll have Maharaja's Leela Kirtan now. Granthara Srimad Bhagavatam ki jai, Srila Prabhupada ki jai.